This is a Film Stories original podcast.
We made this!
Welcome back, everyone, to the Xcast. The truth is in here. I am Tony Black, your host, and I'm joined today for a very special reminiscing breakdown of Xfest 2019 by a bunch of people who, unlike me, were actually there. Amazing. So I'm just going to sit here now being really envious of the following people. So when I shout out your name, give me a cheer, do a dance, well, even though nobody can see you, but hey-ho. So, Carl Sweeney.
Hooray! Hi, Tony.
Hello, Sarah Blair.
Hey, guys, what's up?
Marlene Stemme.
Hey, Tony.
Cortlan Waters.
Hello.
Bartley, do I say your second surname? Or
some people do, some people don't. Doesn't matter.
I did, okay.
I have no preference.
Okay, good, because I did it both. So, and finally... Cathy Glinski.
Good morning.
Yeah, it's great to speak to you all. As I say, you guys were all at Xfest 2019 in Chicago just a couple of months ago. And what we thought was, we're all involved in our own little Xcast patron chat zone and things like that. And as afterwards, we've got entire threads about the Xfest experience. And I was keeping tabs on it in the weekend. I was stuck in Birmingham, UK, and you guys and Kurt and all the other people who are involved in the Xcast community, who listen to the podcast and get involved were there. And I was keeping tabs on it all. And after it finished, we were all saying, let's have a podcast to talk about it a few weeks down the line, because obviously everyone was really excited and you guys were brilliantly recording on the spot and you all did a great job with that. So I thought this is a nice chance for me to talk to you all about the experience, which I felt like I really had sort of through you guys. It was a really nice feeling. And to just go over it, really, and think about what happened. Because you've had a few weeks now to let it process and digest. We're recording this on the last day of June. And this took place over the 6th to 7th of June through to the 9th of June. How was it for you all? Really? I mean, I don't mind who goes first. Well, let's individually. Let's go around, actually. Let's do that. Sum it up briefly in a sentence. Cortlan, you start.
Oh, okay. No pressure.
No pressure.
I get to go first. How was it? It was, I think, one of the best convention weekends I've had, including Xfest last year, which was also brilliant. And it was such a powerful experience to go to a convention with fellow fans. That it's one just not going to forget it anytime soon.
Yeah. Awesome. What about you, Cathy?
Same.
I want this in the style of the Smoking Man, please.
I can't. It was truly the best con I've ever been to. It was so well run. It was exciting. It was fun being around all the fellow fans who just were enjoying it as much as we were. It was really, truly a special weekend.
Yeah. Or again, got those vibes completely. Carl, what about you?
Yeah, so I was kind of actually slightly apprehensive. I'd never been to a convention before. Just didn't know what it'd be like. Felt like it'd be kind of an alien experience to me. But honestly, it completely surpassed my expectations. It was a great weekend. It really was.
Nice. Michelle?
It was my first convention ever, and it far exceeded anything that I could have imagined. And I've said it before, and I'll already start this off being sappy. I don't think that it would have been anywhere near the same experience alone as it was with all of the Xcast folks that were there. They just, getting to hang out with all you guys was outstanding.
Yeah, you could really see that. absolutely, 100%. Marlene, what about you?
I would say it's one of the best and most genuine social events of any type, the convention or not, that I've been to in a long time. I thought it was a good mix of like friendliness and familiarity, along with just this, so the excitement of like the novelty of seeing these people from the show, and it just all went together really well. And I'll second what Michelle said about being with like meeting XCast people. It was sort of like we just knew each other, and obviously we podcasted together, but just even being in each other's presence. And of course, those of us that went to the parody show, that helped a lot with that. But it was sort of like finding your people, both among us, and then also, recognizing that the people from the X-Files were equally excited to be there was great as well.
Yeah. And Sarah, when you weren't hanging around by Mitch Pileggi's table, how did you enjoy it?
I don't know. Would it be overly dramatic to say it was life-affirming experience?
I agree. I think that's great. Yeah.
I mean, like, just to have been through like this fandom and everything for so many years, and then have all these experiences, but to reiterate, it was so much more special because I felt like everybody from the X-Cast understood how important it was for all of us to be there, and like to have all of our own experiences to bring and share with each other. Just was like, it made me feel like, hey, I'm where I'm supposed to be in my life. This is great. This is what I'm supposed to be doing. Exactly. So it was a really cool feeling.
Do you think that do you think you all would have gone if it weren't for the podcast and the XCast community that you already were part of? And I'm sure it's not just, you've got, other people in this fandom and you've got other friends and things like that, but do you think you would have gone, or would you have had the same experience, or what do you think?
Well, can I start, Tony? Because I actually crossed the Atlantic Ocean to go. No, I don't think I would have. I don't think I would have gone to X-Fest without the X-Cast and all of that, because I was always a massive fan of the X-Files, but getting involved with the X-Cast just intensified that and amplified it in a really good way. So I think that if in an alternate universe or something where I hadn't come across or, come into contact with you, I wouldn't have gone to X-Fest. I wouldn't have known all these people. So maybe it's different for you guys stateside, because I imagine for some of you there's a good chance you would have gone regardless. But no, for me, I definitely wouldn't have gone without the X-Cast.
Well, yeah. So I guess from the complete opposite perspective, I just happened to live only 5 hours away from where the X-Fest is held. Yeah, only 5 hours.
Yeah, that's like the span.
Yeah, that's how I would look at it.
That's like the entire span of the UK drive, like for us. Seriously.
If it makes you feel any better, it's also the entire span of the state that I live in. So I drove.
I don't think it does.
No, okay, sorry. Sorry, but I mean, really, relatively speaking, that it's really. I live really close to where X-Fest is, and I went last year, and I knew the day that I left X-Fest last year that I was going to go again whenever it happened. And at that point. At the end of X-Fest last year, I had met Cathy at X-Fest, but I didn't really know, or at least didn't know very many people from the X-Cast at all. So, kind of from the opposite, I would have definitely been there just waiting for you all to get there.
I had decided after Spooky that I was done with conventions, because I'd had, ticked off enough boxes and just felt like I was done with that part. But then everyone from XCast was saying they were going to be at X-Fest, and I knew I just couldn't miss it. And I'm so glad I was there. It was really such a fantastic weekend. And meeting the XCast crew and hanging together, and like we had been friends for years, it just was amazing.
I'll say I've gone to a lot of events by myself, including international events, just because I wanted to, and I thought that they would be like meaningful events. And they're great experiences, but the best of them, and they've really been few and far between, are the ones where I kind of almost happenstance met people that were doing the same thing. And you just kind of meet these people with the same mind as you. And this is definitely one of those. So it sort of harkens back to a few of the events before that I've done that I would have gone anyway, but it just made it so much richer, to have it be a shared experience.
Do you guys think then, I mean, it's what if you obviously take away the X-Cast community side and meeting people for the first time, in the real world. Not that podcasting isn't the real world. I always look when people say that, in the real world. Well, this is real. We're not dreaming this. Anyway, or maybe we are. But it's it's that whole in person, exactly. And so, I mean, if you take that away, what do you think it is about? Because I've seen a lot of the stuff. There's a whole X-Fest attendees group, which I was very kindly invited into by Jay Repsol, who runs it, even though I didn't go, which is full of she's really nice, which is full of reminiscences and things like that, and so much excitement about the event itself. What for you guys would you say made this one particularly special?
Jay, who put it together, is a fan of the X-Files, so he knows the show well enough to know what the fans are looking for. And he put together guest stars stars who had never been invited to a convention before, because they only did one episode of the X-Files, and why would they go to a convention that wasn't solely focused on this show? And I think that made a huge difference. He knew what fans were looking for, and he listened to people from last year about what didn't work, and he fixed all those things for this year and made them work. And it was just it was an amazing experience, and it was because it was solely for the X-Files, by a fan of the X-Files, for fans of the X-Files.
It almost seems like, while Cathy was talking, I was thinking it seems like season 3 of the show, where it sort of hit its stride and kind of learned from what had gone on in the past, but it was still something that was really personal to people. And I'm really curious what Cortlan and Cathy, who I know you guys went last year, thought, because from what I've heard, it seemed like last year was kind of the maiden voyage, and then this was the year that everybody was still really involved in the show. And even those people that you talked about that had, not done a convention before, or maybe had been in one episode of the X-Files, were so into it. But it's not such a big, celebrity thing that it's gotten to, a point where people all aren't gathering and talking and so forth.
Well, I think it's really hard. I think really difficult to compare this year's X-Fest and last year's X-Fest, just because of several factors that they changed to make it work better. Last year it was only one day, and last year it was in sort of like an event space that was like just sort of one or two big empty kind of halls, I guess. It was just smaller. It was kind of like a smaller venue, and it wasn't as well laid out. So it was kind of rushed to get through everything in one day, and there wasn't the kind of downtime that we had this year. So this year, everyone, including the guests, who were there signing autographs or they're doing panels, had free time, and that didn't exist last year. So it's really hard to compare exactly how it feels different.
Yeah, I think the 1 day versus 3 days. Last year, you couldn't do photo ops and panels. There just wasn't a way to do it. And then with all the stars in the room signing autographs and trying to rush back and forth to photo ops, it needed more time, and they gave us that this year. And this year, I think a lot of the stars who were invited knew a little bit more what to expect, and they were so excited to be there, and that was infectious.
Yeah, and I can't compare it to last year because I wasn't there, but the main thing that struck me was just how enthusiastic everybody seemed. I mean, the sort of guests, whether it was Mark Snow or, Karen Carnival was great, or the Enigma just wandering up to us at the bar and chatting away for a good hour or so. It just seemed like everybody was pleased to be there. I mean, who knows, there may have been some issues that I just didn't see, but whenever I went in the autograph room and had a look around, for instance, it just seemed like everybody was having a great time and just a lot of enthusiasm on display. And I think that's a good part of why the event was so special.
I think my favorite part about it was how relaxed everybody was and just how chill it was. Like, nobody was running around. You know, we were all excited and happy to be there and happy to see, you know, the stars and all that, but everybody was just so chill. It was really relaxed environment, and it felt, I mean, time and again we talk about how much the X-Files production feels like a family, and that really translated through to the convention. I think, like, we were all just kind of there to hang out and be around our X-Files family, and it felt like everybody was on the same page about, you know, how to act, and nobody was running around being rude to the stars or anything like that. And it was all very polite and respectful, and I really enjoyed that aspect about it.
Well, I mean, no, go on.
I was just going to say, it seems like Jay and like everybody involved did a lot of work to make it able to be a casual event, because it was certainly, I'm sure, not casual in the organization, but that was the vibe, like Sarah was just talking about, that you could just kind of hang out, you know, but that takes work to make that happen. So that's just what I was thinking.
Yeah, I think that's the secret to a good convention. I think when they do make it look easy, or they make it as relaxed as possible, because, you know, ultimately you're going there for an enjoyable experience with fellow fans and to meet some of the people you've admired for so long. You don't want it to be too tense or difficult or, you know, rushed or anything like that. And it sounded like, you know, you just felt like you were surrounded by like-minded people in a nice space, having these really great experiences. And I mean, if it compare, I mean, like you say, comparing it to other conventions that some of you may have been to, do you think there's anything that they specifically did differently or better than some of the others in terms of how they organised it, in terms of how it was set up, you know, location, things like that?
They were prepared for things. They knew what the crowd size was going to be. They knew they had a plan for managing it, and they chose a photographer who knew what they were doing and had a system for everything, so that no one was getting shoved around and changed, you know, told to change lines and not knowing what the answers were. It was just preparation. Mm-hmm. I think that's what it was. I mean, I'm comparing it to Spooky Empire, which was a madhouse, and probably because David and Jillian were there. Jay was smart enough not to invite David and Jillian so that it could be a casual event. But yeah, they seem to have thought of everything, and that makes a huge difference.
Yeah, I agree.
I thought there was.
I was just going to say, I think the spaces that they laid out, even the screening and panel room, where really at times, you know, it felt like everyone was in that one room. It never felt to me crowded. It never felt that kind of like claustrophobia you get, you know, in a crowd of people. No one knows where they're going or what to do. Everyone had a clear idea of where to go, and there was no confusion that sometimes happens when you're trying to move a crowd of people from one space to another. I thought it was just really well laid out and really thought through. And that helps, I think, make it seem relaxed.
Selling the autograph and photo tickets separately so that you're not trying to hand money at the table and do all that kind of transaction made it a lot easier. Made the interaction you're having at that moment much nicer, because you're not worrying about, you know, pulling your wallet out or whatever.
Yeah, definitely. The only other fan convention I've ever been to was it was called, I think, Heroes and Villains or something, is here in Atlanta, and it was just like in this gigantic, almost warehouse space, and it was like this concrete floor, and it was really disorganized. There were like vendors all over the place spread out, and they had kind of like the booths were set up with just like poles and curtains, and like the layout was just really disorganized, and it felt really impersonal. And I really liked how, X Fest was in this big, warm, carpeted room, and it was very classy, and you could stand in the middle of the room and see all of the tables and all of the people at once, and kind of pick and choose where to sort of I think people did a really good job distributing themselves.
Yeah.
Between the lines, there was never really a line that was ever too long or too short. I mean, there were a lot of times where, people had either just come back or were about to head out to like a photo op or something. So there were no lines. And that was a really great opportunity to kind of walk up and just say hi and talk to, the actor or actress and spend a little bit of time with them with nobody around. And just having the opportunity to do that was really exciting. And I felt like everybody kind of was very cooperative as far as the lines went. And I never waited very long at all. So that was really nice. And, it was easy to find everything. I never got lost. I never wasted time like trying to figure out, where anything was. Everything was labeled really well. They had good signage and that kind of thing. So I think that helped with the atmosphere for sure.
Yeah. The layout of the hotel was really conducive to a good event, I think. Mm-hmm. So I think if X-Fest 3 returned to the same venue, that would be positive news, I think.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. Carl, I mean, was it just you, Carl, who was a convention noob, or was there anybody else who'd never been to one before of you guys?
Yeah, well, Michelle was a newbie as well. Yeah.
So
I had never gone.
Michelle? What did you feel then, as somebody who'd never been to one before? Then what was your feeling about the whole thing and how it was set up and all these things?
Oh, my feelings on the whole thing were overwhelmingly positive. I didn't really know what to expect. I had heard some horror stories regarding Spooky, but then I had also heard some of the reasoning that attendees had for why it was such a somewhat unpleasant experience for them. But layout wise, I thought it was great. There were a lot of people there, and yet it never felt like there were a lot of people there, if that makes sense. I never at any time felt like I was squashed in a room and didn't have room to turn around or move, or you hear a lot of stuff about Comic-Con where it's just so much humanity in one space that you're kind of just always surrounded. And while there were a lot of attendees, I didn't ever feel, I'm not prone to claustrophobia anyway, but I never felt like there was just too much. The lines seemed to be very manageable. I think at one point the line for Dean Hagland may have been longer than others, but he was all of the actors and actresses were so, I don't even know how to put it. They were so conversational with everyone. At least I never felt like I was being rushed through a conversation with anybody. And it felt genuine, and it was just a great experience for me. And, the lead up to it, I was, with everyone else counting down the days until the event started. And I can't believe, I think I said to Marlene last week, it feels simultaneously like it was a minute ago and yet forever ago.
Way back when.
Yeah.
Wait, that's a long time. Yeah.
But leading up to it, I'm not sure that I kind of felt like, okay, I'll do this, and I'm not sure if I'll ever do another one, but so many of you guys were going to be there that I couldn't pass up the chance to go. And now after the event, I can't imagine not going if and when there's an X-Fest 3.
Yeah.
I think that goes too to what Sarah was saying about it being life affirming, because I had a couple of things going on beforehand that made me not, it's not that I wasn't looking forward to the event, but it wasn't like top on my radar. And I was like, yeah, I'm going to go. But I sort of questioned, like, do I really want to go another night? Because I was like, oh, I don't know, I'm going to have to pay for this and whatnot because of some things that had happened. And then once I got there and we were all involved in the events and with each other, I'm like, what a ridiculous thought process I would have to even consider, Like, you just get in the car and do it. And I know that that's, the best thing to do, but that was sort of like reaffirming of, again, like life affirming to just get out there and do it and have fun. So it's definitely valuable.
I think as a convention newbie, so what I was thinking in advance was, I'm pretty sure the Friday will be very enjoyable. You know, the quiz and the cosplay and have a few drinks and whatever. What I was wondering was, will the Saturday just be so hectic, so many people, so much going on, that there isn't time to sort of stop and enjoy it? And in reality, I feel like there was the zen point between variety and also the chance to sort of take stock and to chill out a bit is what they achieved.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So I was very pleased by that, you know. And even though I didn't get to all the panels I wanted to, because there were times when there was other things to be looking at or people to be talking to, but it just doesn't matter, you know. I enjoyed it so much that I don't dwell on the things that I did miss. But so yeah, that's what I'd say as a newbie, that I really enjoyed that aspect of X-Fest.
Was it just the 10 hours on a plane with Kurt you were dreading, Carl? Was that it?
Well, I was anticipating sleeping on the plane. It didn't happen either way, sadly. So, yeah, more sleep next time would be good.
I am joking, Reynard Muldrake. Yeah. It's fine.
No, Kurt was great. And also, I don't know if we're going to discuss like the podcasting we did, but so handy to have Kurt there for the audio quality, because I think if he hadn't been there, I could have worked out how to do a live recording, but I don't think the audio quality would have been as good. So, yeah, hats off, Mr. North.
Yeah, absolutely, because there's no way. There's no way. No. He was brilliant.
He did work quite tirelessly around the scenes, but then I've realised he doesn't sleep.
It's true.
He doesn't sleep. So. The other night I was awake. There's a little story behind why. I'll briefly tell everyone this story. You guys know this story. Carl and I were supposed to record this with a couple of you guys on Friday, and it didn't happen because a week before. I had a random explosion in my house, which was it was an X-file in itself. A piece of glass in my shower exploded out of nowhere, woke me and my wife up at 2:30 a.m, freaked us out, as you can imagine. And the guy fitting the new panel was coming round on Friday night when we were supposed to record, so we had to push it back. But the reason I bring this up is that I was then messaging at like 3 a.m. because I was awake, and then I see Kurt's posting something on the basement group on Facebook. I was like, it's 3 a.m. Like, what are you? How are you? I've got a good reason to be awake. I've just found out I've got a poltergeist in my house. What's your excuse?
Well, on the flight back from Chicago, he slept through some very severe turbulence over the Atlantic Ocean.
Wow.
You know, I thought we were going to drop out of the sky. So he does sleep.
He's catching
occasionally.
Yeah. only in the air. Yeah. He sleeps.
I feel like Sarah is probably having the same thought that I am right now about the 3 a.m. wake up club.
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
3 a.m. wake up club. That was one of my favorite parts. Is Cortlan and I were roomies, and we knew ahead of time it was going to work out because we text each other all the time, and we're on Marco Polo, so we Marco Polo each other all the time.
Marco Polo
and
again?
We're always awake. We're always awake. Tony, I'm telling you, seriously, you need to get on here.
Don't bother telling
me. Anyways, So we discovered that it was true. We both, Cortlan and I, woke up at 3 a.m. at X-Fest, and we were quiet in our room, and I looked over and she was on her phone. She looked over and I was on my phone, and we were texting and tweeting each other at 3 o'clock. We hadn't said anything, but
in the same room.
Yep.
Yes.
You're texting each other.
Yeah.
That is very millennial behaviour, to be fair. Very.
Well, Tony, let me tell you that actually meeting Sarah, I realised that she's a very different person in person than she is online, because I could never decide whether she was being serious or not. So when I'm getting text messages at like 4 a.m. saying, meet us downstairs in 15 minutes, I'm like, do they mean it? Is this true? Should I go? Is it a bluff? You know?
It was true.
It was true.
It was true.
It was true.
Wow. Yeah. I would have struggled with that. I think.
Yeah, I think about what I may have missed in those early hours when I was sleeping.
Lots of talk about trousers.
Yeah.
So, did in those lost hours? I mean, did you guys bump into anyone Like, were there any celebrities hanging around? What kind of, like, I mean, we'll talk about favourite celebrity encounters, like, at the actual event, but have you got any, like, stories about bumping into random X-Files stars and things like that around the hotel?
The elevator was the place to be.
Yeah, the elevator.
Right.
Cortlan and I, and was it Michelle, or I think it was just Cortlan and I and Deana, and we were there and sitting in the lobby on our floor, and the elevator opened, and Nicholas Lee walked off, and he kind of saw us all sitting there together, and he kind of paused, and he looked at us, and he's like, "Good night, everybody." And it's like, "Good night." Good night.
Good night, Nicholas Lee.
Yeah, like I just told Alex Krychek good night. Okay. So that happened.
Yeah.
And Mitch Pileggi, of course, was on the elevator going up one more floor, and he saw Deana and us all huddled around together. And I know he knew something was going on because the look on his face, he just looked out and he just looked suspicious. He's like, "What is happening here?" And I didn't know what to say, but I just kept my mouth shut because I was quietly dying inside. It was all fine.
Yeah, I did actually. My original plan was to drive the 5 hours home on Sunday after everyone kind of left, but I didn't wind up doing that, probably because of the 3 a.m. wake up club. It was just not going to be a good idea. But so I wound up staying Sunday night, and that evening, Sunday evening, in the hotel lobby, after what I feel like most people left at some point Sunday afternoon, I actually had the opportunity to talk to just a few people in passing. You know, it was late. It was like 10 or 10:30 by the time we were all kind of sitting there having a drink, and Frank Spotnitz was still there, and I just got to say, like, you know, thank you for coming and get some rest now. Melinda McGraw was there hanging out for a long time. So we got to chat with her for a few minutes. You know, there were definitely people still around on Sunday night, which I was not expecting at all. But which was nice just to say, you know, one more thank you for coming and doing this with us.
Oh, that's so cool.
Yeah.
I'm sure Frank Spotnitz was doing something later that week in the US, though, wasn't he? I think he was off.
He was off to meet Chris Carter on Tuesday.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. So he was probably making like a week or two of it or something
Sure.
like that.
Yeah, sure.
Which makes sense. And then a few of them may well have done that, mightn't they? Built other things in because they were coming from all kinds of places, weren't they? Some of them from all over the place. So what were your favourite celebrity encounters then? When you're going up and getting your autographs and pictures and things like that, give me some favourites.
Meeting Mark Snow was so fun because he was just so enthusiastic. It was like one of the first things I did on the Saturday morning, so I was like one of the first people in his line, and he was just really funny and willing to chat and take pictures, even though I hadn't bought a picture ticket, but he was really fun. But I think what I loved the most was Sunday morning I was in line for Rebecca Tulin, which was right next to Mitch Pileggi's line, and I was just standing there in her line, which was kind of long, and he looked up and saw me, and he goes, "Hey, Cathy, how are you doing this morning?" And I thought, I just love this man. The next day. I mean, what a sweetheart. So that was really cool.
Awesome.
Yeah, Mark Snow was a lot of fun because I had a quick chat with him. I just saw his table was unattended, so I thought I'd just wander over and speak to him. And I just asked him a question, and you know, this was like late in the afternoon. He'd been speaking to people all day, but he gave me a very considered, detailed, lengthy answer, you know. And, you know, he just seemed, I think Marlene said something on one of the podcasts, but he'd said he was having a damn good time. And that really did kind of radiate out from what everyone said about him as well, I think.
Yeah, he said, I talked to him in the hallway after his panel, and he just kind of blurted out, he's like, "I'm having such a damn good time," and went on about that. And he said, he had said in his panel, and then he reiterated it, he's like, "Everyone here is so smart and really into the show," you know, and he said they're not just people kind of hanging out. And he didn't go into what that meant, but I thought that was great that he was just so excited to be there.
Carl, was your question, which episode of the Davy Train was your favourite to score?
Score, right.
Because that's the question.
We did. Oh, Kurt's not here. Kurt and I did get to tell Nicholas Lee about the Davy train. Yeah, that was great. He seemed to get a big kick out of it.
which genuinely, Matt Latham, is so excited about that. So I told him about it like a week later when I went to paint his house, and he was like, "Brilliant!" It's spread everywhere.
It's in the real world now.
Yeah, it exists. Yeah,
yes.
So, the Davy train, and it will be on the Xcast one day. Strokes chin mysteriously.
Yeah. Another just on the theme of celebrity encounters. So on the Saturday, I think it was early evening, but we were trying to assemble everybody for an Xcast group photo. And
I still can't believe this actually happened.
Yeah.
I know.
It was taking
I missed it. I don't know where I was.
Yeah, it was taking a bit of time to assemble the group, but so Karen Conville came over and sat with a bunch of us for, I don't know how long it was in reality, but it felt like 45 minutes to an hour.
Oh, it had to be at least that long.
It had to be at least that long.
And again, it just felt like she's very genuine and very curious in the sense of being interested in people. So speaking to us all about what we do and all that kind of thing. So that was a lot of fun.
I watched Plus One last night, and I was still just freaking out over the fact that we had sat with her for half an hour or more.
I was in the Mitch panel.
Yeah.
So yeah,
I was there with you, Sarah, and I don't know how I missed the whole that entire thing and just heard about it afterwards because I went to the Mitch panel too.
Well,
the phone call was the best part of the whole thing.
Yeah, my phone died. So after the Mitch panel, I went straight back up to the room to get my charger, and I plugged in my phone, and it came on, and I had about 5 or 6 messages from Cortlan asking who I was and what I was doing, and I had to hurry because we were about to lose our photographer. And I was like, what in the world is she talking about? It's like, when did we hire a photographer to take the cast photo? Like, nobody told me about that. And so I called her, and she said, we're in the lobby. Come straight down. And so I called her. I was like, hey, I just got your messages. Are you guys still there? And she said, yeah, come right now. Come now. And then all of a sudden I heard this scuffling sound, and she's like, oh, hey, hang on a second. And then all of a sudden in my ear I hear, I'm hungry. I screamed. I was heading towards the elevator, and right when the elevator's door opened, I heard that in my ear, and I just screamed, and everybody was like, what is wrong with you? So the whole way down the elevator, I was freaking out on the phone, talking to Karen Conable, and she was saying hi to me, and then I opened the elevator doors open, and she was there, and she just tackle hugged me, and I was like, okay,
that's so
that's
funny.
Cool. Yeah.
But you see,
So
you
that was
know
really
her, you know her already because you've recorded
Yeah.
Xcast with Karen. And that's the great thing we've had a lot of these people on the show. Mark Snow did one a few years ago now with me and Brandon Motella. If you rattle through a lot of these guys, Larry Mussa, who everyone loved to bits.
Yeah. Brian Husky. I talked to him and told him, and yeah.
Brian Husky.
Yeah.
This is a big tease. Now, Carl and Sarah know this. None of the rest of you do. But we have what could be our biggest interview lined up. And it's not confirmed, but you guys are going to freak out if this comes off.
Yeah.
Okay? You are. So, I'm not going to tell you any more.
Oh, that's just mean.
It is mean.
That's mean.
Maybe I'll tell you. I might tell you off air because it's not
Okay.
confirmed. Okay, it's not confirmed yet.
Is it Michael Patonen from
the Davy train?
The train conductor,
Yeah,
right?
obviously. Yeah, damn it.
You guessed.
But no, everyone was.
Okay, I'm sorry.
I know. I thought I could keep it secret. But no, you that's the thing. Some of you have spoken to these guys already, or you've heard them on the show and things like that. So it must have been, it must have been surreal just to have them. That's what I kept thinking, and it's one of those things where I may do a podcast like this, I may run one and things like that. But I still face to face with people find myself a little bit, starstruck. I remember there was a convention in Birmingham, my hometown, some years ago, and I was with Matt Latham, the aforementioned Latham, and Mitch Pileggi was there, but he was there mainly for Supernatural at that point. And Latham will tell you the story about how I tripped over my bag in front of Mitch Pileggi, and he noticed. He looked at me as if to go, "Are you okay?" He didn't say that, but there was just a look on his face, and I just looked at him. And I thought, "Yeah, you know what I've just done," and I just recovered myself and walked on like, "No, nothing happened, Mitch." So, you know, if I ever do meet Mitch Pileggi, I'm going to tell him that story. I'll say, you won't remember this. but no, I do get a bit... So do you guys feel that? Or did you feel like you didn't have to? Or was it,
I think Cortlan remembers the sound I made when I first saw Mitch. Yeah. It was... Yeah.
I do to a degree, but I think with some of them, you just kind of get in this zone, and they're so gracious that in the back of my head, I'm thinking this is a famous person, but it doesn't feel that way in the interaction with them.
Right.
To go back,
never had any interaction, but I still get terribly starstruck. I mean, I had to write down and practice the question I was going to ask Frank's spot, and I'm so glad I did, because I would have just stumbled otherwise, because I really get starstruck.
Yeah.
I think I had this conversation with Cathy because, I mean, Saturday was really busy morning for me, kind of gathering all of the people for this Gishy photo that we were doing with Annabeth Gish. And I spoke to Annabeth probably 2 or 3 times, and I kept having to leave. Like, I would be like, okay, I'll see you later. And I would leave, and then I would have to go back to her table because I had forgotten some crucial thing that I needed to tell her. And it's because, I mean, I get in front of the table and my mind kind of goes a little blank every time.
Annabeth to tell her this one thing, and I told her everything except this one thing, and I
except the one thing.
Yeah. I needed to tell her. It's funny because you walk away from the table and you're like, oh, I just thought of 12,000 questions I wish I'd asked.
That would have been better than what came out of my mouth.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's definitely surreal. So I just remember being sat in the lobby. I think this was on Saturday morning, and we saw Tom Braidwood there, sat by himself.
Yeah.
And he had his earphones in, so we didn't go and talk to him or anything. But I think the next time I looked over, a few minutes later, Bruce Harwood had joined him, and then 20 minutes later, I saw them both walking down the corridor with Dean Hagland. It just felt like the universe was, in exactly the right place, and it's just surreal.
Aligned. Yeah,
it's just surreal, like just seeing Mitch Pileggi at the bar, or what's also surreal is being introduced to Annabeth Gish and then realising that she thinks you're Cortlan's husband.
That was definitely, that
funny.
definitely happened.
Yeah.
I thought it was surreal, too, seeing some of the people that either hadn't known each other on the show really connect, or characters that had sort of, oppositional roles on the show. Like Melinda, I saw Melinda McGraw go over and greet Nick Lee. I'm like, he murdered your character at the top of the 3rd season. And it was just such a warm interaction. And then when Susan...
Weren't they dating, for a time?
That's what I heard. The rumor.
Yeah.
And then Larry Musser and Susan Blumart, though they were in the same episode, had never met before until that weekend. And that was kind of cool to think about, too. And I know it's because of the way they film episodes and so forth, and they weren't in the same scenes. But I just thought that was really neat that brought those people together as well.
It was really interesting, too, to see the Enigma run around and get autographs from all the other actors. He seemed to be so thrilled to be meeting and I'm sure he's done cons with them in the past, but it was just, it was pretty interesting to see. I mean, the Enigma is a pretty interesting guy in general, but his enthusiasm to be meeting and getting photos and getting autographs with the other actors was pretty cool.
Yeah.
Awesome. Yeah. This is it. It really felt like it had that nice vibe to it. I suppose the last thing I want to ask really is about the kind of balance between it, because you've got the celebrity side, you've got the fun of meeting up together and having all these experiences with these people. What about all the other things that they were providing? So you had things like Jim Thornton's preservation collection, you had the screenings of episodes. You had various other little things going on, the quiz, that happened and all this kind of thing. I mean, what do you think there was a good balance of that stuff? Would you like to have seen more of that? Would you like to have seen less? What do you think?
Yeah, it was great, I think, to see the preservation stuff. That was hugely fun.
That was a highlight for me.
Yeah, that was great. You'd have loved that, Tony. You really would have. The quiz, I think, maybe could be improved in the future. But I think there was
I agree with that.
It was still fun.
I was going to say they need to get Marlene doing the questions. Let's be honest.
I know. Right? Thank you.
Seriously.
One funny thing can I mention one funny thing that came out of the quiz the next day is that we had this whole thing with whether or not the buzzers were working properly on each side, and it was all like Kurt and I especially were going on about that after our one and only round in the quiz, because we were up there just like firing away at the buzzers. So the next day in Frank Spotnitz's panel, he was talking about his first times on the show when he'd been first hired, and how Chris Carter had told him just to go and fix this episode, and he kind of had to figure out how to fix it. And so he was saying, it was the episode, I can't remember the name, but it's the one with the older people. So he kind of paused, and I called out, "South to stay," and Cortlan leaned over, and she said something to me about, like, using the buzzer. Like, I was trying to help. So we definitely had that quiz mentality going.
Yeah.
I think for me, I would imagine true. I think for me, it would be true no matter what the sort of scenario was. I think the screenings are one of the most powerful parts of an experience like X-Fest. I really, because I don't know about all of you, but I experienced the show like as a fan in a pretty solitary way. I just watched on Netflix and became a fan that way, and then met people online in the fake world, or I guess since this is the real world, I don't know, in the nebulous digital space,
online world.
Yes. And so so to go from that kind of like viewing experience into a room of 200 of your new best friends who are all watching this episode together is really powerful, and in a way that I would not have predicted before I experienced it necessarily. So I am always up for more of screenings, more of the screenings.
Yes. I think
it's just a weekend of screenings would be fine.
I remember
it's very immersive.
One moment. It is, and at the end of Forehead Sweat, when Scully's talking about how she's got they're eating the goop bow or whatever, and she's like, she wishes she could do it all again or remember how it was. And Carl and I just looked over at each other, and we were just very close over it all. And
one of my favorite parts of the weekend was sitting next to Kurt during the Forehead Sweat screening, because he was just loving every second of it, cheering and laughing. It was so fun. When do you get to do that? It's just it was a really special time.
Yeah.
The Thursday night adventure we went on to see the parody show. We all piled into my rental car after knowing each other for, in face-to-face, in person for 20 minutes, maybe. You guys all trusted me to drive into who knows where Chicago. My Google navigation decided to take us through a residential neighborhood, which was interesting. We saw squirrels running across power lines. But we got there. And
squirrels.
Oh, sorry. Yeah.
and Kurt talking about how this is what he imagined that America looked like from the movies.
Yeah.
So there's the whole commentary on that too.
And then the show itself was great fun, and I was happy that I had decided to get there a day earlier than I had initially planned, because the whole experience was fun. And then wandering around a rather interesting neighborhood in somewhere Chicago to try and find something to eat afterwards. We had quite the adventure that night, but we lived to tell the tale. So
yeah, and also Michelle, remember there was we all bonded, I think, over the 15 minutes it took us to work out how to use Marlene's seatbelt, if you recall.
Yes.
I was thinking about that earlier today.
Tony, I just wanted to mention the podcasts we did too, just in the sense that I think you'd have appreciated it. Like, we find this nice table outside, and there was a real kind of DIY feeling to it. Like, Kurt brought down his bath mat, to use to put the microphones on.
Very good.
So, to help the sound quality and stuff like this. And I don't know what the other guys think, but I think those recordings are some of the most fun I've had doing podcasting, to be honest. So that's one of the things I'll treasure about XFest.
Those were great, I thought.
And doing the out and about, Oh, go ahead, Cathy.
Yeah, well, that last day when we started with the group and people were coming in and out, and Ann Simon was there, and Jay and JJ Lendl and Deana. I mean, just it was really an amazing experience to be part of, and I was just so thrilled to be part of it wasn't live podcasting, but close to it, it was really great.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and doing the interviews outside with Carl was a lot of fun too.
That's good. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I think obviously I wasn't there. I wish I could have been. Sadly, work meant I couldn't be. But I think what I loved the most was that this whole thing started off with me sitting in the room I'm sitting in now in November 2015 with a worse mic and very little podcasting experience, thinking, do you know what? X-Files is coming back. I'm going to do a podcast. And I randomly went on Twitter and I started saying, anybody like the X-Files? Do you want to come and do a podcast? And a few people did at that point. And I had no idea that, in less than 4 years, it would be something that brought together people from literally like different continents for, something like this. Something that's, turned... We were already friends. You guys were already friends who were there. But now, you're friends in... Not just in the nebulous digital space, as you wonderfully called it, Cortlan, a minute ago. Right? Actual friends in the real world. And I feel a real sense of pride, even though I couldn't be there for this one myself. I kind of feel in a way I was, by proxy. And I'm really proud that this helped create that. And it would have been the same for a lot of other groups of friends, who met through Facebook, through Twitter, through all these different places, and then got to meet up at XFest. And that's the best thing. Because what is enjoying a TV show if you haven't got people to enjoy it with? Whether it's fellow fans or somebody, it's never quite the same when you're just on your own. So that's what I'm most proud of, I think. And I'm so glad you guys had such a great time and a great experience. So, XFest 3, everyone?
Yeah, I think too. I would add that it sort of was like you were there because we were continuing. We were there meeting each other and having fun. Yeah, exactly. But we were also trying to kind of continue our creative thing together, and that's your creative thing. So I think that it was sort of more than just hanging out.
You were never far from mine either, Tony. There were plenty of times we say, "Oh, Tony with this and Tony this," and you were always near. Yeah.
But that's lovely. But it is our creative thing now. And that's the greatest thing. Like, yes, okay, I may still, in a sense, oversee the XCast, but it's ours. It's become our thing now. And that's what I love about it. And you guys could just take it off and do all this at XFest. And that's brilliant. And I love that. It's why I'm still I think the XCast is one of the few things I've stuck at for nearly 4 years. Not much else in my life. My marriage is going pretty well. And my relationship. This is great.
You've been doing the XCast longer than your marriage, though, right?
Well, yeah, technically, yeah. So it's one of the few things.
Does your marriage belong to us too, Tony?
Yes, it does. And one day I will convince my wife to finish watching the X-Files because she's only got to the start of season 2 and she's not sure. So I'm like, that's my mission for the next. I know, I'll get her there. Don't worry. But it's. The thing is, that's the great thing. So thank you guys for being part of this and for going there and having such a brilliant time and reporting back in a great way. And XFest 3, I imagine, is everyone up for that? If it happens, when it happens,
yes. Definitely
1,000 times,
absolutely.
Yes.
I'm hoping they go for the every other year, personally.
Yeah.
I think I can commit more
really
wholeheartedly.
Yeah.
I really think that that's feasible. I think it might be even smarter to do it that way. Especially, I think it was Mitch, right, in his panel even said, like, he was going to take a break. So if they do it next year, he's going to say no, presumably, to coming. So I think, every other year is fine.
Well,
I need to go pay a visit to my hat every year.
Oh, right.
Well, I think I think hopefully we might find out a bit more about this, because touch wood, in the next few weeks, Jay Repsol may be coming back onto the Xcast to talk a little bit about Xfest 2 with Paige Schechter, and do a little bit of a download from the organisers' perspective, which will be really good. So we might be able to get a little bit more on their thought process, or even if they've made any decision about Xfest 3. So if we're lucky, we'll learn a bit more soon about that. But we'll see. I think it might be biannually as well, but we'll go from there. Hopefully, I can make it this time, but fingers crossed.
Yeah.
But yeah, thanks guys. Thanks for coming on and reminiscing about it. And we'll be back soon for more Xcast. I'm going to put you all on the spot here. I want an X-Files-esque sign-off from all of you, one by one. Okay? So, don't just say bye. I want an X-Files line. I want a quote to say bye from all of you. So, Carl.
Oh, man.
That's not an X-Files line. Try again.
Not everything dies, Mr. Black.
Okay. Marlene.
I just thought it was a really cool keychain.
Sarah.
Sure, fine, whatever.
Cortlan.
I want to believe.
Good. Michelle.
Explain to me the scientific nature of the whammy.
Right. And finally, Cathy, type something.
I want to remember how it was. I want to remember how it all was.
Perfect. Right, well, thanks for listening, guys. Hope those of you who went to Xfest, and if you didn't, have enjoyed this either way. We'll be back very soon for more Xcast. But until then, as always, trust no one. The Xcast, an X-Files podcast, is produced and hosted by Tony Black, alongside a dedicated team of podcasters and X-Files fans. You can find the show on Twitter at the X_cast, on Facebook by typing in the Xcast, or inside our group, the X-Files Basement, an Xcast podcast fan group, plus on Instagram by typing in the XFcast. If you're a fan of the show, why not support us on Patreon? Exclusive bonus episodes, early access to new episodes, plus become part of our Xcast community in the Patreon department. To see our monthly subscription options, just head to patreon.com/the Xcast. That's patreon.com/the Xcast. We'd love to see you join our Patreon community. We're also part of the We Made This podcast network at We Made This Pod on Twitter and We Made This on Facebook. You can find a range of shows on TV, film, music and popular culture in general on the network. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time.